Hello and welcome to the Cozy Painter. My name is Sky, and I love skeletons. When I decided I wanted to paint some skeletons, I was inspired by a franchise that has always done right by them, the Soul series of games by From Software. The skeletons in these games are often seriously threatening enemies, so let's paint some Dark Souls skeleton warriors.
These are the tales of the skeleton warriors.
This is an image of Lothric Castle from Dark Souls 3. I was inspired by the color palette and design of this area. However, I enhanced the contrast of this image to show the challenge of mimicking the art styles of these games. The real image is much more desaturated. It almost looks black and white in comparison to the rich colors of the edited version. As a developing artist, I've never really thought about intentional desaturation in my paint jobs. This project challenged my usual process and encouraged me to think about colors in a new way. I approached this idea by picking colors directly from this image. I figured if I wanted to paint like Dark Souls, I should just use the exact colors from the game. The problem with doing so is that miniatures are on a different scale than a video game on your TV. In order to convey form and lighting, we will have to exaggerate the contrast while attempting to remain true to the saturation and intended color palette in the game. I started by picking colors for the bones. I set up my palette with various shades of gray, as well as Vallejo Game Dead Flesh. I'll be mixing these colors in some capacity into almost everything going forward to help with the desaturation and tonality that I'm looking for. I apply a dark gray all over the model as a base coat, followed by an all-over black wash to enhance the shadows. Now I start building up the highlights using dead flesh and mixing in lighter tones of gray. Bone is relatively rough and porous, so a dry brush application will give us good texture as well as saving us time over the course of 20 models. I repeat this process with lighter tones of gray, using a lighter touch and focusing more on the higher points of the model closer to points of interest like the face, chest, and arms. Finally, I finish with nearly pure white, lightly touching the highest points and sharpest edges of the bone. As a nod to the first game, Demon Souls, I modeled and painted this guy to look like a fearsome black skeleton, a deadly dual-wielding enemy that you encounter in your journey. The application of paint is the same as the other skeletons, but with a lighter touch to retain more of the black base coat. I also painted a red skeleton as an homage to one of my favorite Magic the Gathering cards, Death's Caress, an evocative piece with a mysterious blood-red skeletal hand. Now that the bones are done, it's time to begin the metallics. I start with a base coat of Citadel Leadbelcher over everything that I want to be steel. In the Dark Souls games, the metallics have a deep dark shadow and very bright highlights. I mix Payne's Gray and Black into the Leadbelcher to give a dark tone to the metal, and I glaze it towards the shadowed areas. I'll add a few extra coats of black, narrowing my focus to enhance the gradient. Now that the shadows are in place, I use Vallejo Game Silver and paint on the upward-facing surfaces to do the highlights. I'm attempting to pay extra attention to the volumes of the surfaces as if I were painting in a non-metallic metal style. Once the silver highlights are done, I go back in with lead belcher to smooth out the transitions between light and shadow. Here you can see the difference between a model with increased contrast and a model with just a regular coat of lead belcher. Following the steel metallics, I begin work on all the cloth details. I start with an all-over coat of Citadel Rhinox hide with a bit of dark gray mixed in. Next is Reaper Bloodstained Red. I cover most of the surface, but leave the darkest shadows untouched. I repeat this process with Citadel Bugman's Glow, focusing on the upward-facing surfaces and progressively covering less space. Next is Reaper Old West Rose, and I built up the color brighter and brighter with more dead flesh. After the highlights are done, I use Citadel Abaddon Black and glaze towards the shadows to increase the contrast. After that dries, I do an all-over glaze of Citadel Evil Sun Scarlet to bring some of the color back in. I do this across all of the cloth pieces with various shades and mixes to smooth out the blends. The wooden spears and shields are base coated in Rhinox hide and then highlighted with Rakarth flesh, followed by an Agrax Earthshade wash to bring all the colors in line. Next I begin work on the gold metallics with a mix of lead belcher and Citadel Retributor armor. The lead belcher helps dull down the warmth of the gold. Demon Souls also features gold metallic skeletons who, like the black skeletons before, will absolutely rock you if you are unprepared. Just like the silver, we add depth by glazing Abaddon Black into the shadows. I do a quick gloss varnish to prepare for an upcoming oil wash. This will reduce the surface tension on the model and help the oil paint run into the recesses. For the oil wash, I put mineral spirits onto a palette, as well as Winsor & Newton Ivory Black oil paint. I mix a bit of each together until the paint easily runs off the brush when applied to a surface. I apply the oil wash to the model with light touches directed into the crevices of the model. You can see how easily the paint leaves the brush and flows into the recesses. It makes recess shading batches of models very fast and easy. I'd like to take a brief moment to talk about why I love skeletons so much. To me, skeletons are the most evocative monsters in fiction. They are the ultimate symbol of human mortality, embodying a primal fear that predates all language and culture. Skeletons are the constant specter of death that live inside our bodies. An animated skeleton is death made manifest. What remains of us after all that connects us to the world is stripped bare. Skeletons occupy a similar space to zombies in fiction. They're both the animated remains of the deceased. While zombies are creatures of unrelenting id, the motives of a skeleton are unknowable. Skeletons aren't always monsters, however. In some cultures, skeletons are a symbol of a joyous afterlife and remembrance. a reminder that no matter who we are or what we do, we will all be reunited as equals in death. A dormant skeleton can be a comforting representation of biomass returning to the earth and rejoining a never-ending ecosystem. This thematic versatility is what makes them an incredible symbol, monstrous or otherwise. Now I'm finishing up the remaining details on the skeletons. I build up some desaturated greens for the shield and start lightly highlighting the gold metallics with pure Retributor armor. Using Citadel Dorn Yellow and Citadel Flash Gits Yellow, I attempted some small object source lighting on these bracelets that some of the skellies have, reminiscent of my man High Lord Wolnir from Dark Souls 3. I glazed in yellow in a small sphere around the bracelets, trying to avoid areas that would not receive the outward radiating light. In Dark Souls, the skeletons have little pinpoints of light for their eyes, which I attempt to recreate here. The deep-set recesses made accurate placement of these lights difficult. And with that, the skeleton warriors are done. This project was a bit difficult for me, which may be why it took me over a month to do. I'm already a slow painter, and batch painting almost 20 models really killed my motivation. Additionally, painting in this desaturated style felt so unnatural to me that I was doubting myself through the whole project. However, now that the batch is done, I'm really warming up to the paint job. Not every project has to be a leveling up moment. Sometimes it's nice to sit down and paint a dude the way you're comfortable with. However, if you never challenge yourself, you'll never grow as an artist. This project really pushed me outside my comfort zone in color choice, technique, and sheer number of models. I came out of it with a better understanding of local color, desaturation, and a bunch of skellies painted like my favorite games. I want to thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. I've been Sky from The Cozy Painter, and until next time, stay cozy.